Welcome to Business Innovators Radio, featuring industry influencers and trendsetters sharing proven strategies to help you build a better life right now.
Welcome back to another episode of Business Innovators Radio. I'm your host, Marco Salinas, and today I have with me a very special guest, Mr. Abbas Younes. Abbas is the owner of Soleil Energy Solutions, which is based out of San Antonio, Texas, and he has actually a pretty substantial little background in the energy space. And so we're going to go ahead and have a little conversation with him today. We're going to explore a little bit about what he's doing now. We're going to talk a little bit about what he was doing before he became the owner of Soleil Energy Solutions. And we're just gonna have a good, fun conversation today. So Abbas, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely, my friend. Pleasure to have you. So I got a couple of questions here that I want to start out with. These are a little bit more designed to find out a little bit more about your backstory. Okay. And so I'm going to ask you to kind of reach in, go back in the database a little bit there. The first question that I have for you is that looking back, did you have any signs or clues that you were going to one day be the owner of a business, specifically the owner of Soleil Energy Solutions, within maybe that gene in your DNA, so to speak?
That's a very fascinating question, because being in solar or the renewable energy industry in general, it involves being in electrical, right?
Yes,
My
sir.
background was electrical engineering. That's what I did. And for the longest time, I tried to avoid it. I tried to avoid doing electrical like the plague.
You actually didn't like it?
I loved it, but I didn't want it to be my road.
I see.
Somehow, moving back from Algeria to the States, things have actually stirred me directly towards it.
Okay.
Every avenue that I have pursued, or I've actually pursued actively, it led me back to my electrical background. So I took that as an omen, basically.
Sure.
To try to to pursue that road. So I'll let kind of life take me with ride that wave. Found myself as a utility employee. After finding myself as a utility employee, I looked about what was available around. Texas is notorious for beautiful sunshine.
Of course.
And those panels at the time, 2014, 2013, they started popping up. And putting two and two together, it made absolute, total sense that would be the future.
Sure.
And it came so easy to me once I started, looking at those diagrams, looking at the back end of the house, not just what looks pretty on your roof, but how it's actually done.
Behind the scenes.
The behind the scenes.
Yeah.
When you look in depth.
Yep.
It was extremely easy.
Gotcha.
So I learned not only to like it, but not only to enjoy it, but to love it. And so I pushed as hard as I could towards that.
I see. Fascinating. Very, very fascinating. So what about this? Abbas? Tell me about the person that you were before. Let's go even further back. The person that you were before you became even an employee of the energy world, right? Because you said you got your start as an employee working for one of the local what would we call that?
I would say utility.
Utility company. Okay.
Utility.
So local utility company, right? So that was kind of your intro to that world, right? But what did you do prior to that? What does your story look like? Dare I say, tell me even about some of your childhood dreams.
The interesting thing is that my job prior to this, I was a bartender.
Okay.
Yeah.
Whole different world.
A whole different world. That was my very first job that I held on this side of the world.
Right. Got you.
On the other side of the world, I did welding, plumbing. As a child, I would say, I've always been fascinated by, the Hollywood, the pop culture. You see the lights and the concrete jungle. So from the jungle that I came from, translating it to a concrete jungle was a dream, really.
Gotcha.
So it started really early on for me to want to be somewhere else.
Yeah.
And when that happened, surprisingly, my family's all overseas in Europe. I never wanted once to go there.
I see.
My sight was set on, it's like, I'm going to be in the States someday.
Yeah.
And I don't care how, when, but I'll be there.
Yeah.
Eventually, when I got here, I didn't really choose what to do. First job, take it. And right. A bartender. So I had a blast. I'm not going to lie.
I'm sure you did.
To this day, I still cultivate some of the great friendships that I had there. And that was 12 years ago.
Wow.
Every single time it was a great ride. It was a great experience. So I look back to this day and still have, a couple smiles on my face. And, I'm fortunate enough to have met some amazing people through the job. So
yeah, no, that's incredible. What about with school? What kind of a student were you? Were you like follow the rules, top notch, good grades, front of the class, teacher's pet? Were you a little bit more on the rebellious side? Did you have trouble fitting within that, I guess you could say, the box of, schooling?
That's another very interesting one, because from 6 years old all the way to for the first grade all the way to ninth grade, I was a very astute student.
Okay.
I was great. All right. I'm not tooting my horn here, but I was very good in school.
Yeah.
When I got into high school, I would say I had a shift in mentality.
Okay, sure.
You get into the girls, you get into your brotherhood and your friends or whatnot. So you know how that goes. You kind of caught a fire.
100%.
And one thing that I have really enjoyed in high school is speaking for the weak.
Okay.
We grew up in a dictatorship.
Sure.
So it was really hard for me to see something that was done for another less fortunate schoolmate and be like, yeah, that's just let it slide him. I won't. So even if it's a teacher, I would stand up and, I tell them, hey, this is not the way you treat a person.
Sure.
So there's this level that I realized about myself, and I ended up being in the student committee.
Okay.
So I was proud to be the voice of the students. And that was at an early age. Even I was a sophomore and hanging out with the seniors at the time.
Okay.
So it was a great learning experience.
Yeah.
And I think that's what shaped a little bit of my communication skills.
Sure.
To a certain extent. And even then, even though I was really against the system per se, I was still trying. I maintained a decent level of scholarship because I was not really interested in literature. I was more technical. I enjoyed math, physics, and chemistry, that's what I ended up pursuing after high school.
Sure.
But I've always maintained a decent standard on everything else. Yeah.
And you're a business owner now. You're in a leadership role. Do you think that maybe that was kind of the start of that? Maybe that was your introduction to some of those type of leadership positions once you took on that type of role?
It certainly was a precursor. I think everything happens in a way that it shapes you, or it at least adds something to you that you don't realize now, but further down the road.
Sure.
Well, sure. One of them I would say probably, I was very confrontational.
Okay.
Being younger. I was pretty brash. But the subtlety of diffusing a situation, finding a compromise.
Yeah.
It turned to be about negotiations, leveraging things. That's just something that you don't realize at an early age, but down the road, when you get a skill that's at least fairly decent on that aspect, you can be like, this is where I learned that.
100%.
You know what? I was very fortunate to meet some great people too that were like, hey, you may get something with a confrontation with someone, but in the long run, if you want to keep getting things from that person, you may have to kind of diffuse the situation instead of escalating it. So
maybe a little olive branch, a little bridge building.
Yep. So those olive branches actually extending them is very valuable. So
for sure,
it's very, very valuable.
No, totally agree. It's incredible how sometimes we look back at those early days, and then maybe the pieces of the puzzle start to kind of fall together. We're like, oh, okay, I remember how that connects to where I am today. And so. Those foundational memories like that, those foundational moments, they play a big role in, carving out a path for us.
No doubt.
Now let's bring it back to, so you're here in the States, you're working at a utility company, you're starting to notice, like you mentioned earlier, like, hey, you know what? Okay, lots of sunshine, South Texas, a lot of heat, this thing that's kind of getting more and more popular now, this concept of, renewable energy, not necessarily being so dependent on the grid, that kind of thing, right? Giving a little bit of independence, and then best of all, cost savings, right? So you're putting all those pieces of that puzzle together, and you're thinking, you know, I think I can turn this into a business, right? Can you kind of tell me about where that decision happened? Like, what was beyond that? What was the inspiration to say, you know what, I'm going to do this, to I'm actually now running this business? What were the circumstances that surrounded that?
I could really cut the chapter in a very, very short period, because it involved a couple bottles of wine, a couple cigars, and a cutthroat decision right at the time. It was a very quick decision made and followed through with, right? But the longer version is this. My former partner in this business, when we met, she was an admin of that side, right? When I was working for the utility.
Okay.
So she was working for a company that, how can I describe this, was not really doing a good job.
Okay.
Right. And what I ended up doing is I was being the guy in backseat correcting those designs and be like, hey, this is how you should actually present it, because this is wrong and whatnot. So once I saw the ease of it, you know, we sat outside one day and I was having a cigar and, you know, having a couple glasses of wine, and it was a really bad day for her. She's like, well, you know, I'm thinking about quitting. I don't want to do this. Like, I love what I do right now. So I was like, well, from what you're saying, this is right up my alley. It's very fun. It's really easy to, you know, to comprehend.
Yeah.
So I can really design all this thing, you know, from ground up.
Yeah.
And she's like, what are you saying? I was like, let's do it for us. Let's do it for us. I was like, I'm quitting. We're starting tomorrow.
Wow. So it really was like a one day.
It was a one day.
This is like, on this day,
yeah,
let's do this. The next day, you guys were already putting that in
the back of my mind. During my time working at the utility, I was looking at the solar panels.
Okay. So the gears had been kind of cranky.
They were already there.
Yeah. Yeah.
The seed was already there. I just didn't know how to make it sprout.
I see.
So when I had that drop of water right there, for me, it was a sign. Hey, this is the direction that we're going to go.
This is our change.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. The next day, we're starting on it.
You're basically in motion.
The next day, it was in motion.
Man, that is incredible. What kind of reaction? So this kind of happened kind of fast.
Very fast.
What kind of reaction did you get from anybody that was in your inner circle, whether that be family, friends, anybody like that? Did they think you were crazy for jumping in so quickly like this?
Yeah.
Were they supportive, like, negative? Like, what did you experience on that?
So, as far as, moral support, I kept it under wraps for almost a year.
Oh, really? Mm. Wow.
One of my closest friends that I was like, hey, I'm starting a business. And he looked at me. He's like, I pray to God you know what you're doing. I was like, I have no clue.
Oh, man.
So I was like, but I came this far.
Those are the best kind.
I was like, I came this far.
You need a little bit of that ignorance, so you can just...
The crazy thing in business is that every lesson is paid for.
Yeah, very true. Very true.
But the value of that lesson down the road is exponential.
Huge.
So I feel like for the time being that I've been in this industry, and I paid a large tuition,
I'm sure,
but it was a very, very valuable,
completely worth it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I agree.
So the family was, once they knew a year after that, they were like, what were you thinking?
Sure.
I was like, I don't know. I knew it was right. I knew I had to do it.
Yeah.
And I did it.
Yeah. And reality, is this stuff that you could have honestly picked up in a classroom? Those lessons that you were just talking about, or are those the kind of things that you can really only get from actually doing and being in the trenches and making mistakes and learning and things?
You can pick up your ideal scenario in classroom.
Yes, right.
You see that beautiful straight road?
Right.
Yes, that's
in theory, in the book, it's all perfect.
It's perfect.
Right. But what happens when you get out there and the customer's not happy? And the equipment malfunction, and then there's a cloudy summer that year, and
And I'll tell you honestly, man, this is on a side note, but I really don't rejoice in my triumphs.
Gotcha.
When I would get a good review, it's not something that I spend a whole lot of time on, because the time for me is where are our flaws.
Yeah.
I'm that type of person who's gonna see is like, and no doubt in these 7 years that we've been in business, we made tremendous mistakes.
Sure.
We did our best to actually do the right thing and make sure that, hey, we did it right.
Right.
Even though we didn't start well. So And those, for me, were my biggest victories.
Sure.
The values that I've extracted from that
Yeah.
were much more enjoyable than this great, everything went perfect. Because that's what a client expects.
Sure.
Everything needs to go perfect for him. It's his investment.
100%.
But when you fall short, that's when you catch yourself and kind of reevaluate. It humbles you down.
For sure. For sure. But you kind of came into it with the mindset of the expectation should always be to do the job right.
Absolutely.
That's just expected.
That's the standard.
That's the standard practice. Yeah. So getting a positive review, like that should be happening.
That's no.
If I don't get that, that's where I need to spend some time.
Absolutely.
What did we do wrong? What could we have done better?
Yep.
And then when you focus on that, you start to probably really minimize those going forward because you keep correcting.
You know, the human factor is one thing that I tell my office all the time. We can determine the severity of a problem in the equipment, of a malfunction. We can see the cost of it, short-term or long-term. I mean, you can plan for all that.
Sure.
But the human factor is something you cannot plan for.
Definitely.
So sometimes you will bring in somebody on board that sounds great on paper, but they don't deliver.
Yeah.
That one could be a thorn in your foot.
Right.
That's the, and that can cost you. Sure. Unfortunately, those are the risks that we have to take.
100%.
But those corrections have to be made and made swiftly.
Absolutely. I think, Abbas, that's a perfect segue to the next question. And this is something that I really like to emphasize. You kind of alluded to some failures and then some correction. Every single successful business owner that I have spoken to has had their fair share. Some have had actually quite a bit, right? But the mindset of the business owner is very different from the mindset of let's just say the 9-to-5er, which is you avoid failure at all costs. Usually the business owner understands that failure is going to happen. Fail forward, fail fast, learn from it, move forward.
Yep.
Are there any of those type of experiences that you went through that you now realize directly contributed to the success that you're experiencing today? And maybe anything that comes to mind, any specific
Absolutely.
scenario?
No doubt at all. We had our shortcomings. We had our pitfalls. We had, our shortcomings for clients that expected the best of us and we didn't deliver it. That was definitely one of my most valuable lessons that I knew was the value of your employee. That's why now we invest tremendously in our employees. And if you don't fit, you don't fit. It's nothing personal. So because they will always be the face of your business going outside. So we have to groom them and invest in them to make sure that, they're up to our standards. Yeah. As far as the failures, man, in the first year of this business, I think of first 2 years of this business, it took everything out of us at the time to make this happen. Yeah. It was we didn't really know what we were doing.
Yeah, sure.
But we felt like we were helping people, right?
Right.
Because there was a tremendous amount of repairs. Everybody that had gotten solar in 2014, 15 were robbed.
I see.
Very, very much robbed.
Wow.
So we had a lot of cleaning up to do. And by cleaning up, we were building a certain customer base, right?
Sure.
But at the time, there's no money in repairs.
Yeah.
So the business was not really sustainable. The
Yeah.
operating expenses were ridiculous. It was a new industry. It was a high-tech industry, even though the technology is 50 years old. Right. But yet again, it's a high-tech industry. So the cost of it was very high. And it was taking a toll on us.
I see.
Tremendous. So we had to reevaluate almost our standard of living and our projections and what should we look for and what relationships should we build. That was a very costly time, but it was extremely valuable.
Yeah.
Extremely valuable.
100%. So as a business owner, you're usually in those earlier years, you're probably putting in the most amount of work that you ever did. Yep. You're probably making the least amount of income that you've ever made, especially in comparison to the amount of work, right? You're probably struggling you're responsible for other people's payroll. You've got overhead, you've got expenses, you've got customers that you need to make happy. And I think people don't realize just how much sacrifice, work, and all that goes into building this thing, these types of things, these businesses, right? Now you're in a very different place.
Oh, definitely.
Totally different, very tiered place. At the time of this interview, you guys are really, you have your system down. You know what to look for in employees. You've hired some superstars.
Yeah.
You've got an amazing team. So that's my next question. Tell me a little bit about your company, Soleil Energy Solutions, and where you guys are at today. Maybe you can describe your current business, the type of people you help, the problems you solve.
So, the background, how the company was built, from zero.
So zero, yeah.
Absolutely nothing to what it is now. And even then, we have taken our growth as slow as possible. We had multiple opportunities to expand out. We had multiple opportunities to cross state lines. We had partners that were like, hey, you should invest in this. It was not a movement out of fear to do, but it was a conservative movement to know that it's not sustainable in the long run.
Yeah.
Because if we decide to put our name, let's say we're based out of San Antonio, and let's say we're going to Oklahoma, and we put our name on that install.
Yep.
Best believe that we're not going to service it the way they wanted to, if we are needed. So that move was not a smart one.
Gotcha.
So we kind of stayed a little bit, here.
Yeah.
Making sure that we're healthy.
Yeah.
Making sure that we retain our guys as much as possible, creating the process to train them, creating the process in the back office to make sure that our clients actually receive the most amount of communication. And I'm not saying that we have arrived.
Sure.
But it's a constant progress.
Sure.
So we even anecdotally, as of 3 days ago, we gathered a customer database and we sent them all surveys. How was it?
Yeah.
Because not everybody's going to give you their feedback, but we want to get that feedback. And I know it's going to be, some of them will be great, some of them will not be so good,
right?
But I'm really interested in the not so good ones. I want to see how we fell short on what we can improve on. It's a constant improvement. Businesses never arrive, so we always keep on chipping away at the block and seeing that we have now the basis to take off. And that's what we want to build on.
I think that really says a lot about you. It says a lot about your company. And let's just do one very nitty gritty type thing. What kind of offers are out there for someone that's interested in adding solar to their home? Is it difficult to get that started? Are there a lot of upfront costs? Are there, is it really hard to get approved and qualify for a loan for all that equipment? What's out there right now, and what do you specifically, what does Soleil Energy Solutions offer in that regard?
Quite honestly, that I haven't seen an easier process than that. Really. It's either from booking the appointment to, having, presentation at your house about, what solar can do for you, to the process of getting approved for a loan. There are some criteria. They're relatively comprehensive, though. They're very, very comprehensive. Some of them are more comprehensive than conventional loans.
Okay.
And there is absolutely no upfront cost.
Okay.
There's no cost. There's actually good tax savings for you. There's a 30% tax credit that goes to you where you can recoup some of that.
Okay. So that's still around. That's
still around.
Okay.
Yes. It's going to be around for the next few years as well.
Okay.
We don't pressure sales. We don't. We would like to educate, and build that relationship with our customer base.
Love it.
And there are some times that we will run promotions.
Yeah.
With our promo, we'd run a cash rebate on hand for you, which is what we're doing right now.
Okay.
The local utility rebate is gone.
Okay.
So we're actually supplementing that.
Oh,
as a courtesy for
stepped up to fill in that slot.
Yes. The inflation is here.
Right.
People are struggling.
Right.
On top of saving your money on your bill, we would like to also encourage you some more to be like, hey, times are not always tough.
Sure.
There's some relief. We just got out of the holidays. You never know who has what going on.
Right.
Some people, we had a client actually who had a $1,500, balance with the utility.
Okay.
He couldn't pay it.
Yeah.
It's like, it's going to be a monthly payment for this. So one of my sales guys stepped in and he's like, what if we give you $2,500? So you can take care of that balance, right? And on average, on a monthly basis, we will save you $100 off your bill.
Wow.
So, which means with your monthly payment and no utility bill. So your utility payment, your monthly payment for your solar comes out lower than what utility bill could have been.
Right.
So and that's an extra $1,200 a month.
So boss, let me make sure I got this clear.
Yeah.
Because you're getting me pretty excited over here. You're telling me that if I need solar, that you guys are actually, because I'm buying a solar unit, but you're putting money in my pocket right away,
Certainly.
up front.
So
essentially,
so this is how it is, right? Everybody's like, I'm going to promise you a rebate at the end of your installation or the end of the whole process once it's turned on. We actually don't do that. We'll give you 50% ahead.
really,
That's like a good faith type of thing. You know, you have faith in us, we'll have faith in you.
no kidding. That's incredible. Who does that? You don't see that. I've never many in any other industry.
Not very many. Not that I heard of so far.
No kidding.
So-
That's pretty huge. I'm also going to bring out one other thing that I think this is really important. You shared this with me. I noticed, and I've known other people that have gotten solar,
Mhm.
and one of the big complaints that I hear is that they talked a good game up front.
Yep.
Some of you even had some sort of little incentives. Now, I'd never heard of actual cash money up front, but I've heard some good, the energy rebates, different things, right? But then the moment the guys showed up to actually install the equipment, the person that signed them up was nowhere to be found.
Mhm.
And the guys who showed up to do the install created a lot of stress, anxiety problems. It didn't go well.
Yeah.
It didn't go very well. Do you outsource the installation to a third party, or do you handle that yourself? Because I don't think many people are doing it themselves. You guys do.
It started to get a little bit more popular to do it yourself, right? But it's a very it's kind of like it's a very sticky point.
Okay.
Because from jump we didn't outsource our installs,
Gotcha.
and that was from day one. There were times where I was installing them. I would rather go up there and do them than having somebody else that I have no idea what they put that in client's house.
And then reflect that here.
And then exactly. Most of the major companies out there, they will have other people that they hire locally or from somewhere else and be like, oh yeah, I'm going to put your shirt on and you go steal it. We don't do that.
Wow.
We handle everything from start to finish.
So you are in control yourself. You're monitoring. Know that the person works directly for you.
Yep.
And he reports back to you if there's a call, if there's an issue. It's not this third party company. It's your guy.
Yep.
Right. So
and they all live here. They're all from San Antonio.
Wow.
Born and bred. And they've been working for us. Some of them, are about 3-4 years with us.
Wow.
Which is a long time in such a young industry.
Sure.
Everybody bounces off, from to greener pastures.
Right.
And we were fortunate enough to keep the core of our install teams, healthy enough to keep service in this area.
Man, I really think that's huge. I really
it is. It is crucial because you can buy a supercar, but it wasn't delivered right. With the wheels on top of the hood, man. That's not a supercar.
Right.
It's right. If you want to get something and you're paying for something, you should expect it to be delivered.
Yeah.
100% the way it was promised to you.
And maybe I shouldn't even ask this, but you know what? This is a very open conversation. I'm going to ask it. If you were to outsource to a third party instead of monitoring and controlling that with your own team, would you very likely make a little bit more money on the transaction by outsourcing it?
You actually make less.
You do make less.
You're taking a bigger risk. That's one. You're paying a higher price for a mediocre install.
I see. Gotcha.
So keeping everything in-house, I would rather distribute that money back to the guys.
Right.
Make sure they are taken care of.
You're saying you make less having control of it. Yeah.
So I would rather make less and make sure that my boys are taken care of than making less given to somebody who's not going to deliver.
Gotcha. That's huge. That is absolutely huge. Abbas, thank you so much for all the information you shared today. This was all great. I'm going to wrap it up with pretty much one more question. We're going to go.
Surprise me.
We're going to go a totally different direction on this. We talked all mostly business. I want to know, what do you as the owner of Soleil Energy Solutions do to recharge from your business? What are your hobbies? I actually happen to know one of them. That's actually where you and I met, and we have a pretty tight brotherhood in that regard. But maybe you could just share that a little bit, as well as who do you spend your non-business time with?
Honestly, I'm a very simple man. I don't have any bad habits or any costly habits, I would say. I enjoy, good fishing spot, good hunting ranch, barbecue with friends, couple beers here and there, a good whiskey for sure, and and a good smoke, a good cigar,
And a good cigar.
and a good cigar.
There it is.
Yes, that is. I would say nothing has introduced me to more people, to more. Let me rephrase that: to more amazing people than what that cigar did to me.
Isn't it crazy? Isn't it phenomenal?
It is. It is really. It builds a brotherhood around something so simple,
Yes.
and that simplicity is what makes it almost like an invisible part of that. Of that. It's not the focal point.
Right.
It's the individuals become the focal
Correct.
point, right?
Correct.
So that's how me and you met. That's how me and a few veterans of our armed forces actually met. Some very, very successful people as well. That I met through a simple cigar. So that one is definitely one of my highlights.
Yeah.
Highlights of my day. But on my non-business time is spent with my daughter.
There you go.
I have a 3-year-old that means the world to me, and every single second that I can spend with her, I would.
Yeah.
Definitely.
That's awesome, man. You're a great guy, Abbas. It's my honor actually to be your friend, to know you. I'm grateful that I had the opportunity to meet you, at the cigar shop. Like you said, it happened very natural. It just happened very organic. We look out for each other, and now we have an opportunity to help each other in different ways.
Absolutely.
And so, from the bottom of my heart, thank you for coming on as a guest.
Thank you for having me, man. It was a blast.
Everything you shared was great. Your story is unique. It's very interesting. And I'm going to leave with this note. I, for one, personally, I'm always very, very touched by, I guess you could say, the kind of the traditional immigrant story, right? You're not from the U.S. You came here. You basically came with nothing.
Pretty much, yeah.
You started doing the bartender thing. You started making some connections. Next thing you know, you find yourself in the energy space, and then you put in massive amount of work, which is part of the equation. But in this environment, in this country, you can take that and turn it into something substantial, right? The fruit will bear from that, right?
That was the biggest attraction to me about what America really means. It's not simply just this country, or it's really the people.
Sure.
Because those people will help you actually to excel.
Yeah.
Those skills that you're bringing in, the hard work that you put in.
Yep.
The reward doesn't come from the sky. It comes from the communities and the cities that we build.
Definitely.
So that's the kickback. And you have the opportunity to actually do that. And it's facilitated. It's encouraged actually to rise and fall and rise again.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like what America really is. You rise, you fall, but you rise again. You have to.
Yep.
So it's been a beautiful ride so far.
That's amazing. How can we find more about you, about Soleil Energy Solutions, and continue to follow your journey? Do you have a website?
Yeah, we do have a website. It's soleilenergies.com.
Okay.
And that website has all our handles for Instagram, for Facebook, for Twitter.
Yeah.
All those platforms at Soleil Energies. So we're all on there. So.
And what's probably the best phone number if somebody wanted to call you?
Yeah, our office phone is 210-255-8825. We have a staff of pretty amazing ladies actually handling, our customer relations out there. So if you feel free to call, if you need a quote, if you need anything, the quotes are free.
Yeah.
So there's no pressure to buy nothing. You want to know, we would like to know as well.
Right.
Can we help you? Yes, we cannot help you. We can wait at a later time.
Yes.
But don't waste the opportunity of throwing that phone call, asking for a consultation, or just a quote email to you.
Sure.
It takes us 5 minutes to generate that. We will be glad to be like, hey, you're going to be saving this much in the longer run. This is going to be yours. You own it. Nobody can take this away from you.
Yes.
So we would be glad, actually, if we could offer you that.
And those girls, they're probably at some big call center overseas, right?
No.
Where they at?
No.
Are they in San Antonio?
Oh, they are just down here for the experience.
There you go. Yeah. So local people.
Yep.
Local company. They're here. They're in San Antonio. They've been in San Antonio. They're not going anywhere. They'll continue to be here.
Yep.
And so you guys have that strong local commitment to the community, as you were mentioning earlier.
I'll tell you honestly, that was my biggest fear going into this, because I don't plan on going anywhere. I love Texas. I love this city. I love its people as well. And for me, this was always in the back of my mind. If I do a poor job to you, how am I gonna look at you next time I see you at HEB?
Right.
Because everybody sees everybody there. This is the Texas staple. How am I going to look at you and be like, man, I did a poor job of this? You know, so the pressure is on all the time.
Sure.
To make sure that everybody's really happy with what they get.
No, I love that, man. You just, we're going to leave off on that note, because that just pretty much summarizes San Antonio, Texas.
Yep, absolutely.
In a nutshell right there. So that's beautiful. Abbas, thank you again so much for your time.
You got it, Marco. Thank you very much, bud.
And that does it for another episode of Business Innovators Radio. We'll catch you next time.
Thanks for listening to Business Innovators Radio. To hear all episodes featuring leading industry influencers and trendsetters, visit us online at businessinnovatorsradio.com today.